Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the vanilla ball python, and the first thing that comes to mind when I think of vanilla, that is the vanilla cream. And essentially what that is the vanilla and fire together in one snake, and it's actually an allelic complex. So if you take a vanilla cream, breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as vanilla, the other half come out as fire. And if you actually look at the vanilla and fire side by side, they look pretty much exactly the same, although if you're mixing them in with other combos, a lot of times you'll get different results as far as the visual appearance. As a matter of fact, if you actually go over to Morphmarket and you're looking for just a regular vanilla, a lot of people will actually list them as a vanilla slash fire because they know they have one or the other, but they don't know which one it is. Sometimes it can get a little bit complicated. So today what I want to do is I'm going to jump over the internet and I want to show you the potential of the vanilla ball python. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here on morphmarket.com, and this is what a vanilla ball python looks like. And the interesting thing is the vanilla is actually considered to be in the black-eyed leucistic complex. A black-eyed leucistic is essentially an all-white snake with black eyes, although the vanilla doesn't really produce an all-white snake with black eyes. And the interesting thing is if you actually take two vanillas, you breed them together, you get a super vanilla. Take a look at this snake. This is a super vanilla. And in the black-eyed leucistic complex, you would think this would actually be an all-white snake with black eyes, but no, it makes for a really awesome looking super. And kind of the interesting thing is it's actually allelic with fire. So if you breed them together with fire, you actually get a vanilla fire, which is not an all-white snake. But I wanted to show you first what a super fire looks like. You take two fires and breed them together and you get the all-white snake with black eyes. This is a black-eyed leucistic ball python, the super fire. And the super fire is interesting in that it has little splotches of yellow in some cases. Sometimes you can have a lot of yellow coming, little splotches all over the snake, and sometimes it can be a completely white ball python. And if you actually take the fire and you breed it to the vanilla, this is what you get. You get the vanilla cream. And look at this snake. This is really awesome. And I think this is really where the vanilla really shines when you start mixing it with fire in addition to other genes. So I'm going to kind of go down a rabbit hole with you here. You know, normally when I go through these morph videos, I show you all the different genes that work with vanilla, and we can kind of see the combinations mixing vanilla with other genes. And in this video, I kind of wanted to change directions. I want to show you what happens when you take the vanilla cream and you start mixing it with other combos, with other genes. So you take single genes, mix it in with vanilla cream, one or two genes, and you get some of the most amazing combos. I think this is really the potential of the vanilla. So I kind of wanted to start with Pastel. Pastel is a yellow snake. They're really popular, really inexpensive, and sometimes they're really bright yellow and sometimes they're not really bright. I'd say this is kind of a middle of the road. Sometimes they're really browned out. I've actually produced some pastels that are a lot browner than this, and essentially as they start aging and maturing, a lot of times they'll actually brown out. And pastels, usually you'll also reduce the patterns instead of these alien heads that you normally see on the side of like a normal ball python. A lot of times it'll reduce it into almost bands in some cases. And if you actually take Pastel and mix it in with a vanilla cream, you get a vanilla scream. Take a look at this scream and say, this is really awesome. And let me tell you, this is where the vanilla really shines when you start mixing it in. So actually the genes in this one, this is actually the vanilla, the Pastel, and the fire. And if you're wondering about the prices on this, you can actually pick it up for, this one actually sold for $500 back in, it was actually early 2019 this one sold. So this actually has three genes in it, pretty awesome combinations. But if you actually just look at the plain vanilla, they're not really that expensive. Just for, I'd say probably a couple $100 you could pick up a vanilla, maybe even a vanilla cream. If you actually go back, I'm kind of interested what the vanilla cream would actually sell for. This one actually sold for just $150. So that is pretty reasonable getting into this awesome project. So let's see, I kind of want to show you the pinstripe mixed in with the vanilla cream. This is the pinstripe. The pinstripe is a dominant morph, and you actually breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as pinstripe. The pinstripe is one of my favorites. It's probably the brightest gold single gene snake that you can actually get. And here's what happens if you take pinstripe and mix it in with the vanilla cream. Take a look at this. You actually get what is known as a rodeo. You actually come over to Morphmarket, type in rodeo, and it'll actually actually break it out between all the different jeans. It'll actually say it's a pinstripe, vanilla, and a fire. You get all three jeans. It makes for a really awesome pinstripe combo. So take a look at this one. This is actually a lemon blast, which is the pastel and the pinstripe together. You mix them together and you get this really amazing snake. And I've produced quite a few lemon blasts in my collection. It's probably one of the most popular snakes that you'll find in the ball python industry. And here's what happens if you take the lemon blast and work it into the vanilla cream. This is awesome. I'd say this is probably one of my favorite snakes. This is actually the lemon blast vanilla cream. So that actually has the pastel, the pinstripe, the vanilla, and the fire all together. And almost completely shatters the snake. And you get this bright yellow snake with all these little speckles all over it. Makes for a really amazing combo. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of interested to see how much this one sold for. $550. Pretty amazing. So here is the Xanthic. There's different lines of Xanthics. If you're actually getting into a Xanthic, make sure that you have compatible lines. And essentially what a Xanthic does is it strips out all the colors and leaves you with black and silver and whites in your snakes. And so for example, if you actually took like a VPI Xanthic and crossed it with a TSK Xanthic, you would get normal looking snakes double het for each line of Xanthic. You have to be pretty careful when you're actually working with Xanthic. This one's actually the VPI line of Xanthic. Here's what happens when you mix a Xanthic in with a vanilla cream. Take a look at this snake. This is really amazing. It's interesting, the vanilla cream just really shatters the pattern on the snake. And a lot of these combos, it really enhances a lot of the yellows and really just makes everything pop. And even in the Xanthic, there's a lot of contrast and it just really explodes the pattern. And I really like kind of the white head on this snake. It makes for a really amazing snake. Here is the leopard ball python. The leopard is pretty much the king of combos when it comes to co-dominant mutations. You actually breed leopard into something else, and essentially what it does is it really explodes and jumbles up the patterns on the snake. If you actually take leopard and mix it in with something that's dark, it'll even darken, kind of enhances the dark areas of the snake. This is what happens when you take leopard, mix it in with a vanilla cream. Take a look at this. This is one of the most amazing combos, the leopard vanilla cream. Really keeps a lot of the brightness, a really bright yellow snake, and it really breaks up the pattern from the leopard. And you know, the vanilla cream actually really breaks up the pattern too. So it's really those genes all working together that just makes for this really incredible snake. It's pretty amazing. So here is the Orange Dream. Orange Dream's kind of tricky because if you actually get into the project, there are several lines of Orange Dream. Some of them are a high intensity Orange Dream, which are super expensive, makes for some really bright orangish yellow snakes. And some of them are not that orange. It's pretty amazing the differences. It almost seems like there's several Orange Dream lines and they just kind of jumble them all together, except they kind of separate some of the high end, really expensive Orange Dreams out. This is what happens if you take Orange Dream and mix it into a vanilla cream. You get this. This is actually the Scream Orange Dream. And actually the Scream, remember if you actually have the Orange Scream or the Vanilla Scream, it actually has the pastel in it. So this has the Orange Dream, the pastel, the vanilla, and the fire. 4 genes to make this amazing snake. And this one, I'm kind of interested in this one. This one's actually $750, which is not bad, you know, compared to some of these morphs that are thousands and thousands of dollars. And all these genes have been around for a long time. I just think it makes some really impressive combos. And I think one of the challenges is, since it's an allelic complex, if you actually took this and bred it to a normal, essentially you could not reproduce this snake unless it had fire or vanilla in the mix, and you actually could reproduce the combo. So it's a little bit trickier to actually reproduce some of these vanilla screams or the vanilla fire complexes. So take a look at this snake. This is actually the leopard and the Orange Dream in the vanilla cream, which makes for really, it gets kind of confusing. It's almost like a tongue twister working with the Orange Dream leopard vanilla cream. It's pretty amazing. If you actually look at the genes in this snake, this is just 4 genes. So the vanilla and the fire is the vanilla cream, and the leopard and the Orange Dream, we looked at the leopard and the Orange Dream individually, and now we're putting it together in the mix. And this one actually sold sold for $1,500. Pretty amazing snake. So this is kind of a really unique anomaly if you actually work spider into the vanilla cream. The spider is usually a really visually dominant morph. If you mix spider into almost anything, you could definitely tell in most cases that spider is in the mix. And spider is a dominant morph. You breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as spiders. Really visually impressive standalone morph. And here's what happens if you take spider and work it into the vanilla cream. You get a vanilla cream spider. And it's pretty amazing. At first glance, it's like you really don't see much of the spider in there at all. It almost completely eliminates all the spider webbing pattern. And I was kind of surprised how light this is. It really lightened the snake. You know, the spiders are usually have a lot of yellows and oranges, and you can definitely see maybe a little bit of the white coming up from the spider. Almost looks kind of like a pseudo calico in a lot of spiders where you have some of the white coming up. And I kind of went one step further and I added pastel to this mix, and pastel is the key when you're working with the vanilla cream spider. Take a look at this. This is the vanilla cream bumblebee. Take a look at this snake. This is really amazing. Just one gene, the pastel, completely transform that snake into this beauty, and it's kind of amazing. You add the right genes in the right mix and you can really transform a snake. The pastel really cleaned up the sides, really kind of brought out a lot of the spider pattern, and it also made for this really amazing head. I love the head on the snake. Look at this tiny little line coming right up the eye. And sometimes you can actually tell what genes are in the mix by looking at kind of the head stamp and sometimes the lines coming up on the eyes. Sometimes you can actually tell from some of the markings on the mouth and little teardrops under the eyes. It's kind of interesting, all these little markers to identify exactly what genes are in the mix. So here is a GHI ball python. The GHI is a dark morph, stands for gotta have it. And essentially what the GHI does is it really jumbles up the pattern. You really don't get any of the typical alien heads like you'd see in a normal ball python, and it really darkens the background of the snake in a lot of combos when you mix it in. Here's what happens when you mix GHI in the vanilla cream. Take a look at this beauty. This is probably one of the best dark morphs in the vanilla cream that I've seen. Really darkens it, and I really like how it just kind of almost makes it almost like a painting. It's really amazing. It almost seems like someone just took a brush and painted almost like, you know, kind of an abstract type of art on the side of the snake. It makes for a really impressive combo. I wanted to show you one more. This is another dark morph, and this is a really interesting combination, working cinnamon into the vanilla cream. Cinnamon is a dark morph. As a matter of fact, it's one of the darkest. If you actually breed two cinnamons together, you get a completely almost jet black snake that is completely patternless with no patterns on. Pretty much the blackest, all, you know, patternless ball python that you can make. And this is what happens when you mix cinnamon in with the vanilla cream. Take a look at this. This was actually totally surprising for me that it actually had this really strong stripe right down the top of the snake. And at first, when I first looked at this, I was like, all right, I think this snake is misidentified because of this. I was thinking, all right, what else could be in here? As a matter of fact, I actually went over to Morphmarket and started looking through all their snakes with the cinnamon, fire, and vanilla. And there were several of them over here on Morphmarket, and every single one had this really strong line right down the back. It's kind of interesting how these three genes work in a completely unexpected way. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Crazy A asks, is there anything different about breeding ball pythons at high altitude versus low altitude? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, I'm up here in the mountains of Colorado at about 9,000 feet, and I always thought that my snake eggs hatched a couple days later than most people normally would hatch them out. It's kind of an interesting anomaly. As a matter of fact, I'm getting back into chickens. I used to raise a lot of chickens, got out of it for a while, and I just ordered an incubator and some hatching eggs on the internet, getting back into chickens. And And the funny thing is I've actually been looking into this exact same thing with my chickens. Normally my hatch rate with the chickens is about 50%, and I've actually seen a lot of people buying these hatching eggs over on eBay, and they're like, hey, my hatch rate is like 95% with these eggs. And I start scratching my head. I wonder what the difference is, why I got such a low hatch rate. And sure enough, I did a Google search and I pulled up this article, and it said if you're actually at high altitudes breeding chickens, incubating chicken eggs, you can expect a lower hatch rate. And I went on to give you some suggestions on how you could increase your hatch rate. One of them was actually to take your incubator and put it in a pressure chamber and pressurize your incubator so you have the same pressure as sea level to increase your hatch rate. I thought that was kind of an unpractical solution. Another one was you can actually increase the oxygen in your incubator to increase the hatch rate. But the problem is with oxygen, they said if you go a little bit too high, it can be dangerous using oxygen. And the last suggestion was actually increasing the humidity. And they actually had a chart in the article. So for example, if you incubate your eggs at 50%, and it kind of had this sliding scale, and at 9,000 feet, I was almost at the top of the scale. I should actually increase my humidity by 13% when I hatch my chicken eggs. So I was wondering if it was similar to snake eggs, where you have kind of a different kind of conditions that affect the hatching of your snake eggs. As a matter of fact, they said in that article, if your chickens lay eggs at a higher altitude, the shells of the eggs are actually thicker and less porous than they are at a lower altitude. I thought that was interesting, and it may be similar with snake eggs, although when it comes to snake eggs, pretty much all of my snake eggs, unless they're really, you know, like full of bacteria and fungus, pretty much all my eggs hatch unless they're infertile eggs. So I don't really have a problem with my hatch rate with my snake eggs, and it doesn't really seem like I have problems feeding my snakes or growing them or anything like that. So I think it affects snakes probably a lot less than chickens. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.